time. And there's a reason why you hear all these personalities like Joe Rogan and some of his kind of cohort, why they're going to places like Mexico and they're getting stem cell treatment, you know, into their knees because they've got arthritis or they've got a problem with hyaline cartilage or anything like that. Because they're so powerful in terms of their healing qualities. Welcome back, gentlemen. My name is Joseph. I'm the creator of Masculine Theory, and today we're going to be talking about what happens when you go without food for 72 hours. So this is a reaction to another video I did on the different types of fasting you can integrate into your lifestyle. So I wanted to go through what actually happens biologically, internally, when you start to go through this process of refraining from indulging in food. Now, there are many self-improvement habits that you can do. You can do meditation, you can do exercise, you can do semen retention, you can do NoFap. So many ones you can do. But I often say that understanding is the precursor to action. You're never going to integrate these habits into your life if you have no synthesis of knowledge into wisdom, which was what I like to call it. So that's what I'm going to bring you here today. I'm going to give you the synthesis of knowledge into that wisdom through the understanding. So first and foremost, we have to talk about, let's talk about fasting in itself. It's a form of hormesis, and anybody who is familiar with hormesis knows that what happens when there's a process that happens when you incur a mild stress into the body. You incur a biological beneficial response. Exercise is a form of hormesis because what you are doing microscopically is you're damaging the fibers of the muscle when you lift weights, and then the body recognizes, oh goodness gracious me, we've got this stressor on the body, we've got this resistance that we need to overcome. And we're not yet proficient in doing that. So what we need to do is we need to build it back stronger. Same thing happens when you fast. When you go without food for a certain period of time, the body recognizes a stressor and has to do something beneficial biologically to our system to make sure that we're better able to deal with that stress. So first and foremost, let's talk about what happens when you go without food for 12 hours. So growth hormone spike. Some studies up to 300% spike in this particular hormone. What does a hormone do? Where it does exactly what it says on the tin. It makes you grow. It facilitates growth. It's something very sought after in the bodybuilding community and any kind of exercise related community, growth hormone. It has anti-aging qualities. It has fat burning qualities, of course, and it also has a muscle sparing effect and incurs protein synthesis. So this kind of runs against a narrative that a lot of people will have against fasting, that, oh, if you're going to fast, you're going to lose a lot of muscle. And I get this question so many times throughout the day is, Joseph, I'm trying to put on muscle, I'm doing a resistance-based routine, can I fast? Transparently, it's not optimal, but the notion that you're going to lose muscle when you're fasting for this kind of window is incorrect. Think about it this way. You're a hunter-gatherer, right? You're scrounging around the forest floor for food. You haven't eaten in 12 a day, maybe 2 days. Why does it make sense for the body to start to remove your muscle fibers, which are going to be the mechanism for you getting your next meal? Makes no sense whatsoever. So your body is going to prioritize the means for you to knock down that gazelle, knock down that zebra, and get your next meal. Anti-inflammatory markers. Now, when we talk about disease, which we'll talk about a little bit more extensively in a moment, you have to talk about fasting for the mitigation of said disease. All disease starts off as inflammation. Inflammation in joints, inflammation in the organs, inflammation in the gut. It all starts here. So fasting has this really anti-inflammatory quality which allows the body to rest and better deal with some of the bacteria, viruses, plaque, fungi that are building up in these areas and remove that inflammation and remove the start of the disease process. 24 hours, so a day without food. Might seem alarming to some of you. It kind of comes second nature to me as I frequently practice OMAD, which is 1 meal a day. But what happens at this point is that your glycogen storages, your stores are probably depleted at this point. This depends on person to person. And the liver starts to switch to ketones. Now, anybody who's familiar with the ketosis kind of diet has to be familiar. You have to be well versed with fasting. People will talk about, so just quickly, briefly, ketosis is the process by which the body is switching over fuel sources from carbohydrates, sugars, glycogen to fat. And fat gets transferred into ketones, which the body can use for fuel, can use for energy. So we don't have to use carbohydrates for energy, we can use fat, we can use ketones. Now, those familiar with the ketosis diet know that they're not eating bread, they're not eating pasta, they're not eating rice, they're not eating potatoes, they're not eating anything carbohydrate based. They're eating meat and they're eating fat primarily. What gets you into ketosis so much faster? Fasting. You know, a day, 2 days, and you can start moving into that other fuel source, which is so much more efficient for the body. So you're primarily burning fat instead of carbohydrates, and you're actually starting to reduce, you know, that stubborn piece of belly fat on you that's hiding your six pack. So this is why this diet is so popular, and why it is foolish to believe that you can get into ketosis without considering fasting. Fasting has to play a big role of it. You can get into ketosis without fasting, but it's hard work, and this makes things so much simpler. So 24 hours, no food, glycogen storage in the liver gone. Let's start using fat as energy, because we don't have anything else now. Autoimmune diseases start to lessen at this point. We'll get into that a little bit more in a moment. And your cardiovascular function starts to improve. So ketosis, your cardiovascular system really enjoys using ketones for fuel. It's good for your heart, it's good for your circulatory system, and also BDNF. Now, this is one of the holy grails in respects to cognitive function. I'm always quoted for talking about the cognitive abilities when an individual is fasting, because brain-derived neurotropic factor. So you have improved neurofunction. You've got growth and function of new neurons. So if you talk about the neurons in your brain, you start to secrete more of them through BDNF, through the fast. You get better at connecting things together. Things like memory, learning, recall, improve, because you have healthier synapses and you have more synapses. And there's an important point here to note in relation to some of the long-term conditions that we can fall into when we get older. Things like memory, Alzheimer's, dementia, and they're all a consequence of some of these factors being affected here. Our very neurology is being affected. So with fasting, we're actually starting to come into some of the preventative measures, and there's lots of clinical evidence to suggest that fasting mitigates some of these long-term cognitive disorders, Alzheimer's, dementia, delirium, things like this. So, you know, the implications are almost outstanding in respects to fasting. Let's talk about 36 hours. So after 36 hours, your body becomes more efficient at using ketones as the primary fuel source. You're starting to release antioxidants, and your body is fully in this autophagy process, which you can liken to an inner recycling system. When you think about the frequency in which we eat, breakfast, lunch, dinner, any snacks in between, you're never giving your body a break. And after 36 hours, you're well and truly into that break, and you're giving your body this long time period where it's not functioning on digestion, on peristalsis, and essentially boiling down the food into micronutrients and absorbing it into the organs and into the blood. But you're putting a pause on that, and you're giving your body time to deal with all the mold, the bacteria, the yeast, the pus, the plaque, all of this grim, disgusting stuff that is building up in your gut, because you're not giving your body enough time to actually clean out. That's what it is. It's cleaning out. If you think about your house, hopefully you clean it every other day, or maybe think of it as a kind of physiological hygiene. That's a better way to think of it. You clean the outside of your body every day. Hopefully fasting cleans the inside of your body. So you're just giving yourself a break and allowing that cleaning process to happen. And then 48 to 72 hours, this is the most remarkable part of the fast in my opinion. You start to secrete stem cells. This is arguably the most important cell you can produce in the body, because stem cells are the most flexible cells that you can produce. They can fit any need that you require at that time. And there's a reason why you hear all these personalities like Joe Rogan and some of his kind of cohort, why they're going to places like Mexico and they're getting stem cell treatment, you know, into their knees because they've got arthritis, or they've got a problem with hyaline cartilage, or anything like that. Because they're so powerful in terms of their healing qualities, and you can secrete that just by yourself by abstaining from food for 48 to 72 hours. Now, this is going to be a big claim, but there's a reason why I say there's evidence to suggest now that it can be powerful in terms of shrinking tumors, cancer-related things, really existential diseases that a lot of people are having, you know, huge problems around, and they feel like there's no cure, or there's nothing to lessen the presence of some of these really big existential diseases. There is evidence to suggest now that fasting can play a role in the shrinkage of some of these tumors, of cancers, and, you know, long-term diseases. Hippocrates actually was once quoted in saying that to eat when you are sick is to feed your disease. To eat when you are sick is to feed your disease. Mind-blowing. In relation to, I mean, there's a reason animals fast, because you're funding the parasites, the bacteria, the viruses, the plaque, the tumors, all of these nasty things with food. So if you take a break, if you fast, if you abstain from fueling yourself at this time, you're actually not giving the disease any more momentum, and you're actually stopping it. So I mentioned this there, animals are frequently observed whenever they're sick, whenever they're injured, they will fast. Completely counterintuitive to what you think. You know, when you were a little kid, I'm sure when you were off from school, mum's bringing you some chicken soup, oh, you got to get your strength up, you got your energy up. It's completely nonsense. It's fueling your illness at that time, and the best thing for you to do is abstain from food. So, you know, Hippocrates always schooling us now in the 20th century to eat when you were sick is to fuel your disease. So it's definitely something to meditate on. It's certainly something to consider. So gentlemen, I hope this video is valuable. It certainly gives me the rationality to frequently go on fast. I'm not always fasting 48 to 72 hours. There is a balance to it, and I will say for those individuals who are trying to get their weight up, train, get stronger, it's not always optimal. I know that. I'm not naive, but I think when you're at a weight when you're comfortable at and you're still training, I think incorporating intermittent OMAD fasting, alternative day fasting, and some of the extended fasts quarterly, I think that's really, really doable and reaping all those benefits. And I'm posting this at a time where I think Elon just tweeted that he's been intermittent fasting recently, so he's not doing too bad. Maybe we can learn a thing from him. Anyway, gentlemen, if you subscribe to anything of which I've said here today, then you can subscribe to me, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Take care.